Hello, I'm Tone Lanzillo, and this is Climate-Duluth. Climate-Duluth is a series of conversations with people who are addressing various environmental and climate change issues in our city and region. Today I'm happy to have with us Alice Tibbetts with We Walk in Duluth. Welcome, Alice. Nice to have you.
Thank you.
Why don't we just start with the organization We Walk in Duluth, how it started, and what's its current focus, a little bit of the history.
So I just moved to Duluth from the Twin Cities last fall in October, and I'm used to being able to walk and bike everywhere 12 months a year, and I was really shocked and dismayed and upset that you can't really walk in Duluth in the winter because so many people and businesses don't clear their sidewalks. So I started a Facebook page to kind of bring people together to talk about this problem, and before we knew, we had about 400 followers. There was obviously a lot of pent-up frustration about it. We had a social gathering at Zeitgeist in January and realized that this issue had a lot of momentum and a lot of concern from the community. And we ended up starting to work with the city in a more collaborative way to try to figure out how we might make this situation better. From there, we've evolved into a group that's much more focused beyond just sidewalks onto policy and how decisions are made in the city.
Okay. In regards to the city and the city government, what are some of the priorities from where you stand?
Well, I'm pleased, and I feel like We Walk in Duluth was a really big momentum in getting the city to kind of take the next step to deal with how they remove snow.
Okay.
So, based on the city's comprehensive plan, there was a lot of input that people are not happy with how snow is removed from streets and sidewalks. So the city is starting a new initiative on that, and I will be working as a facilitator with the city to try to come up with some solutions to make sidewalk clearing more effective.
Okay. Currently in the future, what are some things that We Walk in Duluth will be involved in?
Well, we did start out as a pedestrian advocacy group, but many of us are also bicyclists, and we feel very strongly that bicyclists and transit users and pedestrians all have a place in our community, and so we advocate for all of them.
Okay.
Our big focus right now is we are on the book launch tour for Strong Towns, which is it's a program that's got members in Canada and the U.S. It was started in Brainerd, Minnesota, and Chuck Marone, who started it, will be coming here on December 11th at 6:30 at Zeitgeist. And we're really excited about it because we think that he has a really effective way of talking about policy, spending, infrastructure, financial responsibility, sustainability, in a way that's very accessible and interconnected. So we're really excited to have been chosen to be on his book tour. We're co-sponsoring it with Zenith Bookstore in downtown West Duluth, and people can buy the book there. And the premise of Strong Towns is that grassroots advocacy is essential, that small incremental change is the way to go versus big top-down institutional or corporate change, and that we all should be more empowered to make decisions in how our communities evolve.
Okay. Besides the issues you're working on, when you step back and look at our city region, what do you think are some of the challenges that Duluth faces, our region, as we look forward in regards to the environment and climate change?
Well, one of the things that we're really concerned about is that the city does not have a really coherent, strategic way to talk about all transportation modes in its policy decisions. So we have commissions on natural resources, parks, planning. We don't have any kind of commission or task force that's about transportation. So we miss a lot of opportunities to get improvements in bike, walk, and transit when new developments come in.
Okay.
For example, this Costco project up on the hill.
Right.
We had to really fight to have the bike plan even integrated into that plan. We shouldn't have to fight for that. It should be a given. We don't know what the pedestrian or transit access is going to be with that project, and we just think that we need a much more robust complete conversation about these projects and how all these elements fit together. And, you know, it's also an equity issue that people need to be connected and they need to be able to get to where they need to go safely and efficiently. And that's a big challenge in Duluth.
Yeah. With your work in Duluth and you look at other cities and towns across the country, are there certain cities or towns or models that you've been impressed with and you're trying to learn from? Or?
Well, I lived in Minneapolis, St. Paul for 40 years.
Okay.
And Minneapolis, of course, is considered one of the top 3 cities for bike walk transit. And it's in part because they do have these integrated systems where they ask advocates and citizens and city staff to sit down and talk about projects and how they can be more effective and connected. We don't have that. St. Paul, where I lived, actually, we always said St. Paul was at least 20 years behind Minneapolis because they didn't embrace bicycling at a time when there was this wonderful funding pipeline.
Okay.
But they have caught up incredibly, and they're doing great work in St. Paul. So if you look at the new Alliance soccer stadium,
Yes.
they have, I mean, it seats thousands and thousands of spectators, but they only have 1,000 parking spots. And people get there on foot, by transit, by bike. They have built this wonderful bikeway network. They have terrific bike parking. And they strategically made the decision, we're going to discourage driving to this facility.
Okay.
And it works. And that's exactly what we want to see down at Bayfront and the deck. We think people need to make other choices when they go down there for events like the holiday event.
Right.
You know, we need to give people easy ways to get to those big gathering spots without having to drive a single-use car.
Okay.
And we're not there yet.
Okay. Okay. When or where did your interest in the environment, climate change, the things you're working on, where did this all begin?
Well, you know, I grew up during Love Canal years and used to lie awake at night as a junior high student wondering if we were going to poison the entire planet. And, you know, got interested in the environment through that. I worked at the university for 20 years in environmental sciences at Sea Grant, worked with a lot of environmental studies faculty. So I was hearing about climate change since, you know, the early 80s.
Okay.
And I think the personal is political. And there are a lot of things I cannot influence, but I can influence how I get around every day. And if I can drive less and bike and walk and take transit more, then I'm making a difference. And I think the message to people who are frustrated or despairing or concerned about the environment is look at the things that you can do every single day. And transportation is something like 39% of climate emissions. And we do not have to drive as often as we do. Most trips are 2 miles or less. That's a
Okay.
perfect distance to ride a bike.
Right.
And I can do my grocery shopping on foot or by bike. I just carry a big backpack. And I'm healthy and I get activity every day.
I can truly relate to what you're talking about because I gave up my own car
Mm-hmm.
when I moved to Duluth 2 years ago, so I walk and bus it everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
What or who inspires you to do the work you do, or keep you going?
You know, when I moved to Duluth, I didn't know anyone. And so I started I went to the mayor's bike ride 2 years ago. I started going to any events where I might meet like-minded people. And one of the first people I met was Shauna Mullen at Zeitgeist, who's the active living coordinator. And she's just a really smart, talented, strategic person. And then I met all these other people through her that allowed us to bring this group together. And other folks have just come forward through Facebook or through other social opportunities. And I'm inspired by them. I'm inspired by people who volunteer their time to try to make Duluth better. And there are so many of those people. And of course, we welcome all of them
Right.
to join us. We're a totally open organization. And we, as a result of this Strong Towns opportunity, we want to do something a little more formalized that's about a collaboration with the city on integrating bike, walk, and transit. And we've met some really terrific business people through that process who are architects and designers and business owners who are very concerned about how the city is developing and want to see more balance in transportation choices.
In working with city government, are there certain like boards, commissions, or departments that you know you need to engage and collaborate with in the future?
Well, we're working through planning on this snow removal project. Of course, you know, parks is critical because they actually clear the walks on public space.
Okay.
And then, you know, engineering is important because they have the ability to create or sign off or stop bike projects. Right now, MnDOT is doing really great work.
Okay.
They're doing a really innovative bikeway across Lake Avenue, across the freeway bridge. And it's a great project. They're going to have bike boxes and green bike lanes. And so, you know, we're trying to engage with every agency that we can.
Okay. A lot of people I talk to have talked about visioning or visualizing what they want to see in the city in the future. When you take a moment and think about the vision you want for Duluth, what's in that vision? How do you visualize Duluth in the future?
Well, number one, everybody's out clearing their sidewalks as soon as the snow stops, which is the ordinance. And that businesses, the Chamber of Commerce, the Downtown Council, really understand that their customers are walking and biking and taking transit to spend money at their businesses. There's a huge disconnect there. Businesses typically think that everyone who spends money at their location drove there, and that is simply not true. What the data shows is the number one reason people want to go to an area, especially downtown, is because it's attractive.
Okay.
And I think it was a huge, epic fail that the businesses pushed to not have bike lanes on Superior Street. We should have a bike-friendly downtown. That's just critical.
Okay.
It's necessary, it's essential. And I think our group is interested in seeing that happen. We're not going to give that up. So connected bikeways, safe pedestrian routes, safe routes to school, so kids can walk to school or bike to school safely, and the schools support that and make it easy for them to do it.
Okay. For the people that are watching this, how can they get involved? How can they support your organization in the future?
So they can join us on Facebook. They can message us on Facebook. We are really looking for people to engage with us on this larger initiative that will follow the Strong Towns event. We'd love to hear what people think we could do to have a more system-wide impact on how Duluth evolves as a bike walk friendly city. We'd like to hear from more transit users about what they're struggling with. Minnesota does have an advocacy organization called Minnesota Moves, based in the Twin Cities, and they've done a great job of mobilizing transit users in the metro area, and we'd like to hear from folks about what their experiences are, what they're struggling with, what doesn't work for them, what does work. For example, we'd like to know what the connections are for people to be able to ride their bikes to a certain place and then put it on the bus.
Okay.
Would they benefit from better bike parking in case they can't get on the bus? That's another thing. We have terrible bike parking in Duluth.
Okay.
Terrible bike parking. We have no strategy. We have no policy. And that's low-hanging fruit,
Okay.
especially at big event venues. Like the deck and Bayfront, for all those events, they should have hundreds of bike parking options.
Okay.
And they don't.
Okay. So after the Strong Town event happens, specifically, what would you like to see happen after that event?
We have a whole written plan about creating a task force that will work with advocates, the Transit Authority, schools, the DEC for sure, the Chamber of Commerce, and city agencies that will be modeled on an advisory committee system that Minneapolis has. It's citizen-led, unlike commissions, which are staff-led.
Right.
And we see every project that comes through before it gets adopted.
Wow.
And so we can have a voice in how that project evolves. This is something Minneapolis has been doing for more than 20 years, and it's why that city is very connected and very friendly for biking and walking. Now there they have two separate committees. They have one for pedestrians, one for bicyclists. We would suggest doing a combined committee
Okay.
because we also think that sometimes bicyclists get pushed to the curb to benefit pedestrians.
Okay.
And that's what we saw on Superior Street. We've got these humongous sidewalks
Right.
to preference pedestrians, and bicyclists have gotten really squeezed out of the right of way, and we think that's a false choice.
Wow. So when do you think this task force will be initiated and begin work?
Well, it depends on funding. Right now, we've got some grant proposals out. We're starting conversations with some local businesses that we hope might help us jumpstart it.
Okay.
And we'll be talking to the city about how they feel about it.
Okay.
But we know that we need a more collaborative process for Duluth to move forward and be a really friendly city for these other modes. And it's the wave of the future. We can't all drive.
Right.
And when you look at the data, young people aren't getting licenses. They're not buying cars.
Okay.
They're living a car-free or a car minimalist life because they simply can't afford it. And especially in Duluth, we have so many college kids that take transit who stand out in the middle of the intersection because nobody has cleared the sidewalks or the bus stops.
Right. Wow. You and I have talked about the business community before, and you have mentioned it in this interview. Moving forward, how do we engage the business community and bring them on board, whether it's your initiative or other initiatives in the city?
Well, I think it's, I'm a business owner, I'm an entrepreneur, and I personally would love to have fewer demands on me by the city that my business is in to provide parking, because every spot costs me a lot of money. Some cities have ordinances that say you can provide less car parking if you provide bike parking. So it can be a win-win for businesses. And I think we just need to educate them that your customers are not all driving to your location. And it's a fallacy if you think that's true.
Right.
And there's a lot of great data out there that shows that that is the case. In fact, people who bike, bus, or walk to a business actually spend more because we make more frequent trips. And you would know this.
Oh, wow. You're right.
You know, because you're not loading up your car, you're loading up your backpack.
Yes.
So I might go to the grocery store 3 times a week. And the end result is I spend more money than if I just drove there and loaded up my car once a week.
Right. The one thing I will share, and I've shared this with others since I've given up my car and that I walk and bus, I find that on an emotional and mental level, I'm much more healthier,
Oh, yeah.
much more peace, much more centered. So I've recognized the benefits, not just to the environment, climate change, but on a personal level. Yeah. Have you had an opportunity to meet with and speak to other environmental climate change groups in town to share your story and to try to get their support?
Well, of course, you and I met early on when you first started your work. We have really tried to focus on engaging with the disability community and with people who have already been doing the hard work to get trails built, to get funding for new trails, to finalize projects. So, for example, the Cross City Trail has been in the works for decades. The people who have worked on that have joined our group, and they're very knowledgeable and passionate about that project. So we're trying to really focus on what can we get built, what can we improve that will create systems that people can actually use, that they can see, I have a way to get from point A to point B. I think better signage so people understand I actually can get from this neighborhood to downtown or to Canal Park. You know, sometimes people, when they're new to a community or haven't done this, don't really know the best route. Google's a great tool, but I have found Google sends me up roads that don't actually exist in Duluth. So we've been more focused on kind of getting together with the people who've been working on this stuff for a really long time and kind of pulling our forces together to create more political force.
It's interesting you mentioned the disabled community, and it sounds self-evident, but what was the reason that you wanted to focus on that community?
Well, I mean, for one thing, my partner has had a series of foot and ankle injuries and has been on scooters and on crutches off and on for the past 3 years and is about to go into surgery again in January. And I see how difficult it is for him to navigate in this city when people don't shovel their walks. I have a neighbor who had his foot blown off in Vietnam, and he walks every single day by my house. And that's one reason we shovel religiously, is for my partner and for him. So I feel it very personally. And I think that anybody who has any mobility issues really struggles in this town because people are not doing their part to make it easier. And, you know, we hear an awful lot when we advocate for snow removal that people will say, well, what about the little old lady who can't get out and shovel? It's like, well, what about her when she wants to get to the bus stop? You know, she's not just sitting at home all the time. She's out trying to navigate the city as well.
Given what you're sharing, it sounds like besides the disabled community, I sense a conversation about environmental inequality or environmental justice. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, and that, you know, part of the way our cities have been designed, and I think we see it very clearly here with this division between East and West Duluth. I mean, West Duluth has some of the highest transit ridership in the city, but it's also really sprawling. A lot of those sidewalks nobody really claims, and so they don't get cleared in the winter. The distances are larger for people to, you know, navigate from home to the bus stop to their destination. So one of our members is on the DTA board, and he talks all the time about the first mile and the last mile for a transit rider are often the most challenging, which I think you would know as a transit rider as well. You know, I get off here, but my destination is here. Do I have a safe way to get there on foot or by bike? Maybe, maybe not. And where do I have to wait in the winter to catch a bus? I mean, I see people on Arrowhead Road perched up on a 4-foot-high ice berm because that's the only place they won't get hit by a car when they wait for the bus. And that's just wrong.
Wow. I truly appreciate the work you're doing, because when I read books by Bill McKibben and others, many people talk about the importance of kind of a multimodal transportation system that really focuses on walking, busing, and biking. And yeah, I agree with you. I think that's something that's missing in Duluth and would bring great benefits if we can move forward.
And you know, I would say to people who care about this issue, look at every trip you take every day and ask yourself if you really have to do it by car or if you could combine trips. And, you know, I hate to drive. I own a car. My partner owns a car. But we strive to use them as seldom as possible. But when I do drive, I try to stop it at many different locations as possible and just get it all done in one trip. And that can make a huge difference in the emissions and the congestion and the traffic that we contribute to.
In your organization, besides yourself, do you have others who are working with you and supporting you with this initiative in the organization? Or?
Yeah, so there's about 7 or 8 of us who are consistently involved, and we're starting to bring in some other folks that have asked to get more involved because of the Strong Towns event. Because people feel very passionate about their work, and he has a strong following. He does a really good job with his Facebook page and his website where people can post questions and get answers and create solutions and build a community. And so we're just really excited about the momentum that might create for us. Because we do consider ourselves kind of the Duluth Strong Towns effort, because we really believe in what he's doing.
Yeah. I have met some of your people in different functions. I've been very impressed with them, including Mike, who I've met at the Damiano Center, the Climate Change Conversation.
The thing that's great about the people in our group is they're passionate, they're strategic thinkers, they're big picture people. Like, they can make the connections about what will help change things. It's not just let's do this bikeway or let's shovel this sidewalk. It's a system-wide thinking.
Okay.
And they're really smart. And we've all been, doing this work for a long time. And then we're bringing in some new folks that just have felt like they're kind of isolated in trying to work on this stuff within their agency or in their neighborhood. And, there's strength in numbers, and we need to support, like-minded folks need to support each other. And
Right.
that's really our goal.
Right. So in your daily life working with this organization, what kind of things are you doing on a daily basis where you find that you're spending your time to promote this campaign and initiative?
Well, one of the big things is to just change the narrative about what people believe about driving less. So, part of the narrative is you can walk your kids to school. You don't have to drive to a park to hike in the woods with your kids. This is something you can integrate every day into your life. So we spend a lot of time on our Facebook page, creating messages, sharing important information. We use a lot of data because there's just tons of evidence that communities that have more opportunities for bike, walk, and transit are healthier, they're more vibrant. There's even a post that we shared that said that families who grow up in a walkable community, the children grow up to make more money. And maybe that's because they're healthy.
Wow.
In my family in St. Paul, I never drove my kids anywhere if I could help it. They had a
Wow.
bus pass, and I taught them how to ride a bike, and we had great bike infrastructure,
Wow.
and they were very independent.
Great. Alice, I definitely want to thank you for being with us today. I really appreciate it. You've added a lot to the conversation. In closing, I'd like to read a short quote from a book called, probably appropriate for today, Hope Beneath Our Feet. And it's a short essay by Frances Moore Lappe, and it's an essay called Every Day We Choose. She writes, "Joyful living, I'm convinced, happens when we hit that spot where a potent entry point that touches root causes fire in our own deep passions. I know that when I first discovered that spot in my mid-20s, that our daily eating habits made huge ecological and fairness ripples. It set off a personal revolution, and I've been forever grateful. To find that spot, a critical first step may be to recognize that the negative spiral that can start deep inside of us, if a feeling of lack lurks at the center of our pain that we then project out and create in the world, we can start within ourselves to reverse it. We can acknowledge sufficiency. Right now, we can focus on the strengths of ourselves and our loved ones and the possibilities in front of us and our noses to enhance our capabilities and meet our needs for fairness, cooperation, efficacy, and meaning. Awareness of these capacities can propel the spiral of empowerment, hurling us out of any downward spiral." Thank you. Take care. We'll see you again.